On this edition of The Fifth Estate, Habiba Nosheen investigates a deadly Canadian jail.
We're trying to figure out, why do people keep dying at this jail? You do admit that you killed Adam, right?
Yes, I admit that I killed him.
I bet you people watching would say, you're a monster.
I guess so.
I think you know that we have been investigating your brother's death.
How did this happen? Why did this happen?
Deaths inside a jail captured on camera.
He was begging for his life, begging. And other inmates were begging, help Adam, please, please help Adam.
It was a package that caught our attention. Inside, a USB key with jail surveillance footage. It's not immediately clear what's going on. On the 22-minute-long video, guards come and go. Then, long stretches of nothing. At the end of the hall, an inmate appears to be dangling a cloth through his cell door. A guard tosses something in that cell. Eventually, several guards try to force the door open. They struggle. Finally, they're in, but the video ends. We've been able to piece together that it's a video of an inmate whose name is Keith Patterson, and he committed suicide, according to news reports, on the same day that's time-stamped on the video. So I think this is the video of his last moments inside that jail. This is 30-year-old Keith Patterson, the inmate from the video. And this is where he spent his last days, Elgin-Middlesex Detention Centre in London, Ontario, often just called EMDC. A maximum security facility built for 150 inmates now houses up to 450. It's a remand facility. Mixed with the convicted inmates are those awaiting trial, who could very well be innocent. Even some judges in court have called it a dangerous and out-of-control place. It's earned the name, the Devil's Playground.
In a quarter mile, your destination will be on the right.
We are in London, Ontario, and we're off to see the family of Keith Patterson. We're hoping we can find out more about the video that was sent to us and more about just how Keith died.
Hi,
I'm Habiba Nosheen with the Fifth Estate.
Marsha.
So Marsha, I think you know that we have been investigating your brother's death. So I'm hoping it's okay for us to spend some time talking to you about it today.
This is my wall of my brother, right from being a baby right up to just before he passed. Sorry. He liked to make people laugh. He was a joker. People loved him. He had his issues. He never had that strong family relationship.
Marsha says Keith's father abandoned him at birth. Then, at 11, so did his mother. Years that follow, drug use, in and out of foster care, and struggles with mental illness. He became a regular at EMDC, a jail that's hell for many. For Keith, it was home.
My brother was very well known in there. You would literally go break a law in the wintertime just so he had a roof and food in his mouth, so he could stay warm.
Summer of 2014, Keith enters EMDC again. This time, it's drugs and assault charges. His behavior would often land him in segregation.
He's bipolar. You can't stick somebody that's bipolar in a cell that's 4x6. And there's no way of getting out because it just makes you go even more crazy.
On September 28, 2014, Keith tries to set his cell on fire while in segregation. The day after the fire incident is where the video picks up. So how to make sense of what happens to Keith that day at EMDC? We are going to meet with Kevin Egan. He's represented lots and lots of inmates at EMDC, and one source told me yesterday, probably no one knows EMDC better than this guy. So we're gonna go talk to him. Lawyer Kevin Egan represents Keith's family and was part of a coroner's inquest into his death. This is a video that was sent to us, and I wondered if you could walk me through this. Have you seen this before?
That looks like the video that was shown at the inquest, yes.
What are we looking at?
Okay, so this is two different camera angles. Keith's cell is at the very end.
Egan explains the mysterious dangling object in the video is Keith tying a piece of his blanket to his cell door. You see a hand coming out. What
Yes.
is he doing?
As I understand it, he tied the other end of it around his neck and then went down, lowered himself until he was choking and passed into unconsciousness.
The blanket that Keith rips is supposed to be indestructible, safe for use by inmates like Keith being held in segregation.
They're not properly maintained. These blankets are laundered with bleach, and that weakens the structure of the blanket. And so we've got all these blankets in the system that really aren't effective.
That are deadly, it seems.
Deadly, yeah, they're ready-made ligatures.
Inside, Keith is strangling himself. Outside, a guard comes by with a sandwich, tosses it into Keith's cell, and seems to pay no attention to the unusual sight of a torn safety blanket tied to an inmate's cell door. What do you make of that?
Well, it's sad. I mean, it's entirely possible that if that correctional officer had been a bit more vigilant, that he would have seen the knot, and maybe Keith would be with us today.
At 1:19 p.m., the guards finally notice and try to get in. But Keith had jammed his door. The staff is seen kicking and trying to force the cell open for almost 2 minutes. When they finally get in, Keith is rushed to the hospital. There, he would be pronounced dead. A startling fact: everything that you are watching was being recorded by the security cameras at EMDC. No one at the jail was watching it in real time. How much would it cost to have somebody sit there and just look at these footage in real time?
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, how much is a life worth?
It turns out Keith Patterson's death inside EMDC isn't an anomaly. In fact, it's one of many.
When is the ministry going to fix the design flaws at EMDC and prevent tragedies like this from ever happening again?
For years, there had been calls for action.
Minister, will a guard have to die before you take decisive action on EMDC?
Yet, little had changed, and inmates kept dying. Since 2009, there have been 10 deaths at this jail under questionable circumstances. That includes suicide, overdoses, and brutal murders. and the deaths keep coming. On a day that we're heading to EMDC with lawyer Kevin Egan, we haven't even left his driveway when Egan receives a troubling text message.
Yeah. Okay. I just got notification that that an inmate, another inmate, passed away last night. The news has just come out this morning that it looks like an overdose death.
Do we know what kind of overdose?
No, that's all I've got.
This death is the third one in the summer of 2017. Reportedly, 2 from drug overdoses and 1 from suicide. These deaths can also mean lawsuits. And Egan is the man behind most of them. He's been hitting the province of Ontario with one suit after another on behalf of inmates. You've become kind of a pain for the government, right? They've had to hire a team of investigators to deal with the lawsuits that you've thrown at them. Do you wear that as a badge of honor, or how do you make sense of that?
You know, I guess I wear it with a certain amount of sadness, because the government has been made aware of the terrible problems that exist at EMDC.
Egan says the ministry keeps denying that there is a problem. So his latest move? A multi-million-dollar class action lawsuit on behalf of 13,000 inmates who have done time at EMDC. The lawsuit claims that the conditions at EMDC are inhumane. The suit has already been certified by a judge and is now making its way through the courts. When we arrive at the jail, a number of police officers are already on the scene attending to the latest death. We see a lot of police activity today.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
No, it's normal when there's a death in the jail that the police will come and investigate.
It seems to be happening a lot more frequently.
It's at a frightening pace.
People are being brought out in body bags on a regular basis, and nobody's saying anything.
4 years ago, another inmate left EMDC in a body bag. His death caught on tape. The killer, his cellmate Anthony George, a man with a history of violent offenses. Surprisingly, he agrees to an interview with me. I enter a tiny room, almost the size of a cell, and wait for the killer to arrive. Do you want the door closed, open? Up to you.
It doesn't really matter to me.
Okay. I hear you have a temper.
A little bit. You could say that.
This is how my interview with the killer began. But to understand the story of Anthony George, you have to go back 4 years. When we come back, what happened at EMDC the night of the murder?
You count on the Fifth Estate for investigative journalism that matters. The Fifth Estate team often counts on you, the viewers, for tips that lead to some of the best investigations.
I have a story.
We felt uncomfortable.
Very disturbing story.
To send your tips, email fifthtips@cbc.ca or go to the show website to find out other ways to get in touch.
London, Ontario's EMDC, a maximum security jail with a reputation for violence. Many say, here, the inmates run the place, not the guards. The story of how inmate Anthony George killed his cellmate begins 4 years ago, Halloween 2013. That night, a 29-year-old inmate named Adam Cargis calls his mom, Deb Abrams.
And he called about 6:20. He's like, "Hey, Mama." He says, "I just wanted to phone you and tell you I love you." He goes, "And in 47 days, I'm coming home. I'll be home on the 16th. He says, "I can't wait." And he was so excited, and then there was yelling in the back, and he's like, "Mama, I love you. I gotta go. Somebody else needs the phone." And that was the last I heard from him.
Adam Cargis grew up in Sarnia, Ontario. He was an artist who often designed and inked tattoos for his loved ones. What were his dreams?
Oh, grand. A lot of pipe dreams.
Like what?
Opening his own tattoo shop. He was always gonna do something, but I was like, okay, a little bit back to reality, Adam. You know?
But things changed for that happy kid in his late teens when he fell into drugs.
Near the end, it was crystal meth. He was always getting in trouble for like stealing to feed his habit.
Drugs lead to multiple run-ins with the law. In 2013, Adam Kargas is arrested again. He ends up at EMDC to serve out his sentence for stealing cell phones from Future Shop to support his addiction. His cellmate is the EMDC regular, Anthony George, who would brag about his propensity for violence on Facebook. A violent offender on his 22nd stint at EMDC, locked up with a petty thief. Anyone could see the mismatch. A guard who worked at EMDC for 2 decades agrees to talk to us,
when I was working there,
but asks for anonymity. What I find sort of strange to wrap my head around is, why is there a violent offender being put with somebody like Adam who doesn't have a violent past? How does that happen?
At one time there was a classification system within the institution, and that's gone out the windows just because you're just looking for a bed. You know, in a perfect world, if you had somebody that came in that was charged with something that was relatively minor, they wouldn't be in the range with somebody that you know, had the propensity for violence that other offender did.
Records we obtained show that at EMDC, it's not just inmates who fear for their safety. For years, dozens of EMDC staff have called the Ministry of Labor to say they're too afraid to go to work. These are the videotapes of Section 6L inside EMDC, where Adam Kargas and Anthony George were held. The Fifth Estate team fought a legal battle to obtain them. A word of warning: some of the images are graphic. They show the state of violence inside this Canadian jail that's often hidden from the public. October 2013, the videos show evidence of trouble brewing. On several occasions, Anthony George overpowers his cellmate Adam Kargas by putting him in a chokehold. And then on that Halloween day, this time even in front of a guard, who chalked it up to just horseplay. Lawyer Kevin Egan describes what happened that night.
Inmates were drinking brew on the range. It's alcohol that they had made themselves from fruit and bread and sugar.
Making the jailhouse brew was one of Anthony George's specialties.
But everyone was drinking that night, a number of us.
Former inmate Kyle Deschamps was in the cell near Anthony George and had been drinking with him.
I was pretty drunk. He was pretty drunk.
He had been drinking this brew out of a shampoo bottle all day.
Drinking jail-made brew inside EMDC is a routine for the inmates. Kyle says the guards just turned a blind eye.
We have no supervision. They're not even doing rounds, so they're not doing searches. They're not doing anything. They're not even there.
At 7:56 p.m., with the cameras rolling and no guards in sight, a night of terror inside EMDC begins. It's hard to make out, but cameras catch Anthony George striking and choking Adam repeatedly.
It sounded like a fight. It sounded like there was a fight and someone was losing terribly. That's what it sounded like. They were screaming for the cops. Like, there was a couple guys straight up just screaming, "Help! Key up!" And Kargas was screaming for his life. Like he was afraid, man. It's unbelievable that nobody came to see. It's absolutely beyond me.
8:40 p.m. Violence continues. It's been an hour and 10 minutes since the last round by a guard. They're supposed to do a round every 30 minutes. Records would later show that for 32 minutes, instead of supervising the inmates, one of the guards on duty was on the phone making a personal call.
Everybody heard him. Inmate on the level below said to the guard, somebody's getting beat, somebody's getting murdered up there. And they ignored him. That's what bothers me the most, is that he was begging for his life. Begging. And other inmates were begging, help Adam, please, please help Adam.
10:02 p.m. You can barely see it, but Anthony motions his right hand across his throat. With just 45 days left till his release, the tattoo artist from Sarnia doing time for stealing cell phones from Future Shop is dead. No guards came to save him. Were you angry? Were you confused? What are you feeling?
Pain. Just pain. Pain for him that he had to endure that. I would have taken that. I would have taken that. Don't do that to my son.
The rest of the night, when the guards finally do their rounds, they still don't notice Adam's bloodied body in his cell. Next day, 8:13 a.m., guards come in, unlock the cells. Like any other day, still, Adam's body isn't found. Former inmate Kyle Deschamps recalls his conversation with Anthony George that morning.
He said, I think this guy might be dead. I said, let me see. And he was, I don't know, face up. No, it didn't look like he was moving. I'm like, I said, go, get the man, get the cops. Quick, we'll get the cops. And he was like, why? I think he's dead. Why am I getting the cops?
Then, in full view of the cameras, Anthony George drags Adam's body and dumps it into the shower area without raising any flags.
He just yanked him off the bed and hit the floor, boom. Oh. And then he dragged him off into the shower and propped him up in there. Some of the guys were really in shock. I know I didn't take it well. It's a man who lost his life. And now he's being dragged around like luggage and propped up in the corner in the shower and shit. Everyone was pretty quiet.
That inmate was also able to clean up the blood, mop the floor, move the bloody mattress from his cell to another cell, all undetected by the guards.
This former EMDC guard says the fact that they weren't watching the cameras is just a reality of a broken system.
Security cameras aren't always, there's not somebody sitting glued in front of a monitor all the time. So they, may not necessarily be sitting watching the monitor. And there's a lot of things that are in theory should occur, but it's pretty tough to do.
9:51 a.m. Adam's body is finally discovered by the guards.
And he was beaten beyond recognition. They didn't know who it was. I probably would not have believed it was my son, except that this hand had a red skull, side view, and then I knew it was him.
How are you holding up?
I have nightmares about what my son went through. I wake up in a sweat. Terrified for him.
I go to meet the man who has haunted Deb Abrams in her sleep for the last 4 years.
I want people to...
That's when I come face to face with Adam's killer, who has been locked up in segregation.
I hear you have a temper.
A little bit. You could say that. I don't know where my anger comes from, right? Could have been the lifestyle I was raised up in.
What happens when someone makes you angry?
If someone comes at me, I'm gonna probably smoke them. Bang them home.
So I wanted to talk to you about Adam's death and what happened that day.
I don't really recall the incident that much. Like I drank a lot of alcohol and there was other substances involved, and I don't recall exactly what happened, right?
You do admit that you killed Adam, right?
Yes, I admit that I killed him, right?
Why did you kill Adam?
There's no reason behind it. Like I said, I was intoxicated. I don't understand why it happened myself, right? So.
In the morning, when you woke up and you saw that Adam was dead, we see you on the video wrapping his body and dragging it and hiding it in the shower.
That's when I panicked. I didn't know what to do, right? Like, I knew that I was gonna end up in the hole, like, but I really didn't understand what was going on at the time. I was on autopilot, right?
I bet you people watching would say, you're a monster.
I guess so.
What do you want people to know about you?
I guess they should know that I'm sorry for what happened, right?
Are you?
Of course, I mean, it never should have happened. Like, I still maintain that I had no intent to kill him at all. I've never thought in a million years that I was gonna kill someone like that.
This fall, Adam's murder case finally went to trial. On the second day, Anthony George pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He's now serving a life sentence.
Is there anything you want to talk about?
That tainted jury pool, maybe.
Anthony George says he ultimately pleaded guilty because he says without any Indigenous members on the jury, the odds were stacked against him.
Do you think that would have changed anything for you?
A little bit, right? I had not one minority on the whole jury, right? How is that fair?
If you were sitting on that jury and you watched those videotapes of you beating Adam to death, would you let you walk?
It all depends what all came out in court, right? If known that there was no intent to kill somebody, in my mind it would equal manslaughter on him, right?
Manslaughter for Anthony George would have meant a shorter sentence. After Anthony George killed Adam that night, 6 EMDC staff were fired for failing to do their job. But 3 of those guards got their jobs back. They argued it is unfair to be fired for not following the rules, when some of those rules haven't been followed for years. EMDC is regulated by Ontario's Ministry of Corrections, so we meet with its head, Minister Marie-France Lalonde.
Hey, Minister Lalonde, Habiba Nosheen with the Fifth Estate.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very
You know,
nice.
we've been trying to get the ministry to let you sit down with us to answer some questions about the conditions inside EMDC, and we haven't had much luck. The most obvious question, since 2009, there have been at least 10 suspicious deaths inside EMDC. Why hasn't the ministry been able to prevent these deaths from happening?
Well, as you know, these are matters before the court, and I cannot comment on any specific.
I'm not
But
asking for
what I
anything
can-
specific.
But what I can tell you is my goal is to ensure that Ontario's correction system is the very best in Canada and in the world.
The correctional officers that we've spoken to are saying, we may have fantastic policies on the books, but we simply do not have the resources.
We've hired over 1,600, and our full commitment is there with our great officers that do excellent work every single day in our institution.
There are cameras inside that institution. The cameras have shown people committing suicide, people being murdered. Nobody is actually watching these cameras.
So, anytime there's an incident or a death in our institutions, I am concerned.
The minister says she plans on introducing new legislation to overhaul corrections in Ontario, which include proposals to build new facilities and limiting the use of segregation. Now, with her son's killer finally convicted of murder, Deb Abrams says she can start to piece her life back together.
I want justice for Adam, but I want things to change so that there isn't another Adam. I don't want another mother to go through this pain.